Hey guys, my name's Brian Smith, and I'm gonna take a few minutes and just share my testimony. I thought y'all like to hear it. All right. So I guess where my testimony starts is I was in my bedroom one night, just sitting there, and I was thinking, hey, I started thinking about the people I hang out with, the way I speak, the language I use, and I was like, I'm not living up to God's word. He gave His only Son for us, and I'm not living up to that. So I was like, hey, you know what? Forget it. Everything I've been doing, all my past, it's over. I'm committing my life to Christ. And I said that to myself in my bedroom that night. And I was like, I just did this, but I don't know when I'm going to be able to tell the world. Because I didn't go to church every Sunday or Wednesday. I had never been to a church service on a Wednesday. And I'm sitting there, alright. So my cousin invited me to camp. And it was my first year at Long Hollow Student Ministry Camp. And I got there, it was the first morning, we're in Horns Creek near Cleveland, Tennessee. 3.5 hours away from home, and I'm sitting there, and that morning, the first morning there, Jeff Levingood speaking, and he's like, I don't know, he was saying, he's like, hey, I don't know where you stand with Christ today in your life, but if you feel like you should give your life to Christ, raise your head. He's like, everybody close your eyes and then raise your head if you think you should give your life to Christ. And I was sitting there, I started thinking to myself, I was like, hey, I don't know what he said in this service, but I feel like God was grabbing me and pulling me towards Him, saying, hey, you need to give your life to Christ. And so I raised my head, and He's like, alright, if you raised your head, raise your hand. So I raised my hand. And He's like, alright, if you raised your hand, stand up. So I was like, I've gone this far. I was debating on not standing up because I didn't want everyone to see me stand up. Like, I'm not a guy that likes. I used to not be the person that wanted people to see him. So I was like, I don't know, but it felt like I was like, God was like, do it, Brian, stand up, do it now. So like I stood up, and He's like, all right, if you stood up, walk to the back of the room, find an adult leader, and go outside and talk to him. So I go out there, and we start talking, and the adult leader I was with, he was like, so, is this your first time giving your life to Christ? I was like, no, I feel like I need to like continue my thing and get baptized. He's like, alright, so when did you actually give your life to Christ? And I said, it was earlier on this year. I was sitting in my bedroom, and the story I told y'all before this part, I told him all that, and he was like, well, let me say a prayer for you, and then walk over here to the cafeteria, and Andrew's going to talk to everyone in there. So he prays for me, and he's like, Brian, I'm proud of you, man. I know I just met you, but I'm proud of you. I was like, thank you. And then we go in the cafeteria, and Andrew starts talking to all of us, and he's like, so raise your hand if you said today that you're going to get baptized and finish your faith, walk with faith, and get baptized, and then continue your walk of faith with everyone and share His word with the world. And I raised my hand. He's like, alright, I want y'all to come fill this piece of paper out, and then get one of these wristbands, and it says bring it 13. And I was like, alright, so I went and got it, and I got home. After that, I spent the rest of the week, I felt so good the rest of that week. Like, I read my Bible every night before I went to bed, and I was like, hey, this is amazing. God is doing something in my life. And when we got home from camp, I ran up to my parents. I was like, hey, God, I gave my life to Christ. I'm getting baptized at Camp Share Service. And they was like, they hugged me, and they're like, we're so proud of you, Brian. And I was like, dang, God is doing something in me. And I got baptized at the Camp Share Service, and I stopped going to church. I didn't go every Sunday or every Wednesday. I'd even go to another Wednesday service after the camp service. And then camp came around the next year. I signed up because I had such a good time the year before. So I went, and then I had a great week. Met some new friends that I still talk to today, and hang out with them at church. And I was like, all right, it's cool. I went to the camp service there. After that one, watched everyone that gave their life to Christ that week get baptized, and then I stopped going again. So it was around October. I was on Instagram. Long Hollow students posted a picture on it, and they're like, "Who's gonna come to church? Are you coming to church this week? Bring a friend." And I was like, "All right, I might go." So I reposted it, and I had people comment that went to the church out with my friends, were like, "Better see you there," and all this stuff. I was like, "I'll be there. I'm coming." And then I had some friends that didn't go to the church commented, "Hey, I want to go." So I was like, "All right, I'll talk to y'all tomorrow about it." So I talked to them, and they're like, "Hey, you going to church tonight?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm going. Y'all want to come?" He's like, "Yeah, we're coming." So I went, picked him up, took him to church. Had a good night. Will Moore was speaking that night, and the series is called Unexpected. And he was talking about, like, expect the unexpected. And I was like, all right, I like it. I like that service that night. And then I'm like, I might come back. And 2 days later, we're having our football team meal at school, and Long Hollow Baptist Church is supplying it, is like providing it for us. And Will Moore was there, like giving us our food and stuff. I walked up behind him. I was like, expect the unexpected. And he turned around and he goes, "Hey, you were listening." He's like, "Do you go to Long Hollow?" I was like, "I've gone to camp and Sunday services, but I've never really gone to a Wednesday night service with the student ministry." And that was my first night there at the student ministry. And he was like, "Okay, so, hey, talk to me later." And I totally forgot to talk to him later that day before we left for our game. And I think it was like Monday or Tuesday, I got a text, and he was like, "Hey, what's up, man?" I was like, "Who is this?" And he's like, "It's Will." He's like, "It's Will from Long Hollow." I was like, "Oh, what's up, man? How'd you get my number?" He goes, "I'm creepy like that, bro." I was like, okay. He's like, "No, I'm just messing with you. Cody gave it to me, one of my teammates." He's like, "So you coming to church this week?" I was debating on it. I'm not sure. I wasn't sure if I was going to or not, but I'll come. So I went, and I started going every Wednesday, and I got one of my friends, Alec and Judd. I got some of my friend Alec and Judd to come with me, and they started coming, and then we had an event called Crusade. And the second night of Crusade, my friend Judd gave his life to Christ. A couple days later, he got baptized. And then that passed, and then I kept on going every Wednesday, kept on trying to invite people to come. And then right a couple days before Quest, I get a text message from my friend Alec, and he's like, "Hey, man." I was like, "What's up?" He goes, "I'm getting baptized." I was like, "Dude, that's great. You don't know, the decision you just made is going to change your life forever." And he's like, "Dude, I know, I'm so pumped." And then I text my youth pastor, Will, because he said he was talking to Will about it. I was like, "Hey, is Alec getting baptized?" He goes, "Yeah, dude, I'm pumped." He's like, "God is using you in a great way, Brian. Just keep on, dude." I was like, "God, dude, I don't even want the credit. God's doing it all." And he got baptized the Wednesday before we left for Quest. And that weekend was great at Quest. And then time went on, and I think Quest was back in March. It was February going into March, and then we had dodgeball, and I think April. And Alex's brother Tyler, that Alec had been bringing to church with us, he gave his life to Christ at dodgeball, and he got baptized. And I'm like, dude, that's amazing, dude. And honestly, I just think God is working in my life and in thousands of other people's life in a great way. And recently I've been called. I feel like I've been called to ministry, and when I get older, I want to be a youth minister, a youth pastor, and I think it's just gonna be a great experience. I thought y'all would like to hear that. Thank y'all.